Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our Cambridge Science for the Victorian Curriculum webinar this afternoon. My name is Emma Kapler, and I'm the Victorian Education Sales Manager here at Cambridge University Press and Assessment. Before we make a start, in the spirit of reconciliation, Cambridge University Press and Assessment acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. You can ask any questions in the chat box, which we'll be monitoring throughout the presentation, or if you'd prefer to wait until the end, you can ask any questions during the Q&A session with our presenter, Tori Shaw, and our lead publisher of science, Sarah Fabris. I'll also be detailing the availability and pricing of the series after the Q&A session. The Cambridge Science for the Victorian Curriculum second edition author team includes 3 passionate educators, and today we're lucky to have the lead author on the series, Tori Shaw, speaking to you. Tori has worked in both government and independent schools for over 20 years. She has been an assessor for the VCAA and the IBO and co-authored the Cambridge Science VCE Biology series. She's currently the Head of Science at Kingswood College in Melbourne. Thank you. I'm going to now hand you over to Tori.
Thanks, Emma. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name's Tori Shaw, and I will be taking you through some pretty cool stuff today. So this afternoon, we'll start by having a look at the changes of the new curriculum. Then we'll have a look at how Cambridge has addressed the changes. And then after that, we'll have a look at implementation. So how can we help you save time when you're implementing the new Victorian curriculum? And of course, at the end, we'll have some time for questions. So as we go through, write down questions that you've got or pop them in the chat, and we'll deal with them at the end. Alrighty, here we go. So we'll start by having a look at the key changes. Now, the nice thing to keep in mind is that the key changes, a lot of it is around clarity of things that we were doing before. So please keep in mind, you're not going to be changing everything. You don't need to get overwhelmed. There's a lot of stuff that you already do that you can use, and that's awesome to know that. So one of the key things to start with is that we now have 3 interrelated strands. Presently, a lot of you will be reporting on 2 of the strands, science understanding and science inquiry skills. But when you are fully implementing the new Victorian curriculum, there will be a 3rd strand, science as a human endeavour, that you will also need to report on. Now, the cool thing is that this is something you're familiar with already. So science as a human endeavour, a lot of the bits of information, the elaborations, were previously in the other strands. So they've pulled them all out to demonstrate the importance of understanding science as a human endeavour. And the cool thing is it links to stuff that we've already been doing. There are a couple of new points that we'll have a look at today, but keep in mind it gives that beautiful context to science that we all love about where things have come from, how people found these things out, how we can use Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island information to inform our current way of sustainability, all these sorts of things. It's fabulous. You'll see it's quite exciting. So let's have a think about the content descriptors. So as I was saying, one of the most important things with the new Victorian curriculum is the level of clarity that has now been included. So the content descriptors themselves are a lot more specific and actually include specific terms or specific details of what they want us to teach and what they want the students to learn. So it's been a really good change, and you'll see things that you used to teach with Victorian Curriculum number 1 are there, but now explicit. So an example I keep thinking of is when you teach Year 7 and you're doing mixtures. Ordinarily, you'd mention and go through homogeneous and heterogeneous mixtures, and you'd have a look at those and do some comparisons and look at their properties, blah, blah, blah. Now, homogeneous and heterogeneous, it was an elaboration in the old curriculum, but with the new Victorian curriculum, it's up there in the front in the content descriptor that you do need to mention homogeneous and heterogeneous mixtures. So those sorts of things, it's nice to keep in mind, not as stressful as you may particularly think at the start. In terms of the elaborations, there are some new elaborations. There's some movement. There's an increased focus on sustainability, an increased focus on the role of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders in terms of their ways of knowing. So there's some awesome new focuses. Beautiful new focus on sustainability and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, which is great. Please keep in mind, when you're reporting to the achievement standards. The achievement standards and the content descriptors are very closely linked together. So if you're covering the content descriptors, you're covering the achievement standards. Now, with the elaborations, you don't have to cover all the elaborations. So there may be a new elaboration and you think, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to prepare extra stuff. You don't, all right? But elaborations are there to guide you. So the curriculum board gives them to us as a suggested way or an advisement on how to cover the content descriptors. So we'll have a look at those as well as we move through. Alrighty, so focusing on year 7 and 8, because remember in the Victorian curriculum, they have levels 7 and 8 combined. You'll look at this list and you'll think, oh yeah, some of that's year 7, some of that's year 8 content. There's, some clarity around the content descriptors, like including mention of the testing of oxygen and carbon dioxide and hydrogen. So that's nice. A lot of us would do a, hydrogen pop anyway, but this way we've got some more clarity around what we actually need to make sure that we cover and what the students actually need to learn. Again, I've already sort of chatted about the heterogeneous and the homogeneous mixtures. That's now explicit in the content descriptor. Simple machines, you might think, oh, we always do simple machines, and quite possibly you do. Simple machines used to be an elaboration in the forces content descriptor for year 7. So now it's actually a content descriptor of its own, which means all teachers need to teach it, all students need to learn it. So that is new. Household energy audits. A lot of us perhaps did that when we were talking about energy because it's a nice way of making a real world link. But now it's explicitly in the content descriptors. Also, when you're covering systems, there is a requirement to make sure that you definitely cover animal and plant systems and do some comparison between them. Food pyramids, a lot of us do food pyramids when we're talking about food chains and food webs and all that sort of thing, but it's now an explicit part of a content descriptor. So instead of being in an elaboration, take it or leave it, it is now something that we need to cover. Another point that's new is they've expanded on in Earth Space for year 7, having a look at renewable and non-renewable resources and resource extraction, and also having a look at the benefits and also the disadvantages in terms of sustainability. So that's a really nice one that's obviously ties in with that theme of increasing the sustainability links for this new curriculum. A couple of things have moved. So we used to cover electricity, series and parallel and all that sort of current and voltage. Used to be sort of something we cover in year 9. That's moved back to year 8 now. Something else is tectonic plates and so on. Again, that's moved into year 8 now to cover when you do rocks and the rock cycle. Totally gone is water and the water cycle. One of the things that the curriculum board has tried to do is to reduce the amount of double up and so on. So water and the water cycle is covered earlier in the primary school. So it's not necessary to repeat and build on that in year 7 and 8. The other thing you might be sad to see go is light and sound. I always did love light and sound in year 7, but I am, adjusting to the change. But the cool thing is that in Year 9, you can cover aspects of it there. So in Year 9, you'll have a look at, for example, the electromagnetic spectrum, and you'll have a look at waves and particle models. So light and sound will fit in there. So you do get to still have a play with some of that cool stuff. When we're having a look at levels 9 and 10, so they're equivalent to Year 9 and 10, homeostasis, so looking at the nervous and endocrine systems. Again, something some of us would ordinarily be covering aspects of, but it's more explicit in the content descriptors now. Looking at disease, infectious disease, non-infectious disease, controlling disease, transmission, so on. So that's another new one. Exothermic and endothermic reactions. Often, I certainly know for us when we're teaching Year 10, we often talk about exothermic and endothermic reactions as part of looking at chemical reactions. But it was in the elaborations, but now it's in the content descriptors. It must be covered, must be taught, must be learnt. Space exploration, that's an exciting one. Students, probably some students love or hate the universe, but space exploration is a new content descriptor, and it's got some really cool elaborations that mean that any student, even if they're not into physics and the universe and all that sort of stuff, can really get into. So it's very cool like that. And electricity generation. And that relates to sustainability principles, because if we're thinking about turbines, we can think about, producing electricity using water, wind, and so on. And we just trialled that one at our school recently, and it was super fun. So there's some lovely extension opportunities, but you can keep it nice and simple, and there's a lot of play and experiments. So that was a really good one. Couple of things to keep in mind. Reproductive systems has moved up from what you might cover in Year 8, and the focus is primarily on asexual and sexual reproduction. And as I mentioned before, light and sound has left the level 7 and 8, and that now appears in Year 9 in the context of wave and particle models. So although there's some changes with year levels, hopefully with Cambridge's help, that will be quite manageable. There are some new content descriptors in terms of the science as a human endeavour, and we'll have a look at inquiry in a moment too. So one looking at different viewpoints and how that informs community policies and so on. There's also the one in Year 9 and 10, again, focusing on sustainability, community involvement, changing people's minds, that kind of thing. And in terms of inquiry, it's more, there's nothing particularly new, but things have been clarified. So more specific, more detail, so you know exactly what to teach, how much depth to teach in, and what your students need to learn. Alrighty, so I just thought I'd show you the textbook contents, because I think when you have a look at it, and when you think of a new curriculum, you often think, oh my gosh, we've got to change everything that we've been doing, and there's going to be a lot of stress. We don't have time to do this. How are we possibly going to do all the things that we need to do? But when you have a look at the table of contents, it just reminds you there is a lot that we're using from the past. And when I say using, I mean the content is similar. Obviously, teachers are known for enjoying change and refreshing and adapting and all that sort of thing. But you can see here, Year 7, we normally do classification and ecosystems in Year 7. We normally do states of matter and mixtures. So just keep in mind that some of the nitty-gritty details might have changed, but broadly speaking, we've got a lot of the same things. Obviously, you'll notice sound and light are not there. Clearly, I'm having issues because I love doing that one. Year 8, you'll notice we've got the usual cells, the usual rocks, the usual particles of matter and chemical change and physical change, all that sort of thing. But rocks now will include having a look at the tectonic plates, and you'll notice there's also electrical circuits there because that's moved down from Year 9. When you have a look at level Year 9 textbook, same things that you often will see, chemical reactions, atoms, We've got some increased focus on sustainability with the generating electricity. We've got some of the sound and light coming into that chapter 8 there with waves and the transfer of energy. So a lot of things are familiar and a lot of things we can build on. And year 10, again, keep in mind what we usually cover: genetics, evolution, periodic table, chemical reactions. All those things are still there. Exploring the universe, all right? Obviously, with the additional section on space exploration and its challenges, which is really cool. Conservation of energy and motion. All righty, so everything is covered by Cambridge, okay? So we not only want to make sure that it's very easy for you to tick off on the achievement standards, we want to make sure you can clearly see all the content descriptors are being covered. We also want you to know whatever elaborations you're interested in covering, we've covered them all. So you can pick and choose which elaborations you want to be guided by or not guided by, but it's reassuring to know that everything you need is actually all done there for you. So let's have a look at some examples, and I will have a tendency to ramble. I did do a practice run before and realised that I've actually popped in so many examples, we won't possibly have time to talk about them all. But when you get excited about a resource, you kind of want to share everything. So I'll try and rein it in a little bit. So this example here is from the New Year 7 content descriptor for the Earth Space Sciences, looking at the renewable and non-renewable energy sources and extraction of resources. So as part of that, looking at mining and extraction of metals and so on, that's mentioned and covered in the textbook. One of the elaborations, so remember, elaborations are just suggestions on how you might cover the content descriptor. One of them says maybe the students could prepare a case study on the regeneration of an old mine. So what we've done is we've made a try this activity, and you'll see these spread throughout all the sections of all the chapters. And we've guided the students through how to write a case study and how to link what they've learned about mining to the rehabilitation of a mine. We've linked in with Victoria, because obviously being a Victorian curriculum, you don't actually want examples from elsewhere in Australia or elsewhere in the world. You want everything to be as, I'm not sure what the word is, Victoriaified? I don't know. Everything relating to Victoria as much as possible. So here you can see it relates to the Fosterville gold mine and the different pits there. Some of them have undergone regeneration already. Some of them are starting that process. But the students can do some, research, find out, prepare a case study with the guidance of the subheadings and information. And with all these sorts of things too, you might be thinking, oh my gosh, I am so not going to get my kids to do that because I don't know how to do that myself. And that's fine. And that's why we provide you with a resource that does all this sort of stuff. So whenever there's activities, we'll have like little teacher notes. So you can, if you're on the digital version of the textbook, you just click and it'll say, oh, when you're doing this, here's some resources that might be helpful. They might like to investigate this. This video might be really cool to start get them activated at the start of doing this task. Here's a sample answer and so on. So we've always made sure that we're supporting you in your teaching as well as supporting the students in their learning. Here's another example. This one's a Science of Human Endeavour content description, a descriptor from, I said year 7. This is the one looking at models and theories and how they can change as a consequence of getting new evidence. So this elaboration is essentially talking about how Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have this amazing way of knowing, and their scientific understanding is incredible. And we are now starting to learn their sustainability practices. And so our ideas are changing, things are evolving. And this particular elaboration is referring to through different species and so on. So what we've included is an explore activity. Again, totally supported. So there'll be teacher notes, suggested resources, answers, all that sort of thing where appropriate. And you can rely on that to help you help your students. An explore task is something where the students have an opportunity to engage with the material in a different way. They do a little bit of reading. There's always a couple of paragraphs of information, and then that will lead into the students carrying out some sort of research activity. Usually they're easily done within a period. There's something that's a little bit different. So you might think, oh, I don't want to, chalk and talk. I don't want to do explicit teaching. I need something. I don't want them to do a worksheet. So changing it up is something that all of us love doing, and we know the value of all the different ways of presenting material. So the Cambridge textbook allows you to do that. If we go on, here's an example of a content descriptor that's been amended to include more clarity. So this is the one from Year 8 where they've included mention specifically that they want us to teach and students to learn the different tests for oxygen, carbon dioxide and hydrogen. So in response to that, a prac obviously is the best choice for that, and who doesn't love doing hands-on activities? With the practical activities that we write up in Cambridge, the lovely thing I find is that all of these practical activities I can download and edit. So, for example, I might want to do an activity as a demo and the students just answer questions. Or perhaps I want to really work on their data analysis. So I want to skip off the evaluation and the conclusion stuff and just focus on getting a really good analysis. So I can actually take the paperwork and edit it to what I want for my students, which I love. And it's super handy. Sometimes I can turn an experiment into secondary data. So I can actually change it into a worksheet using data that I collected with last year's students. So having that flexibility makes things just so easy. And also with any activities in the Cambridge resource, teacher tips, answers to the questions, tips when you're preparing, the materials beforehand, what things to point out to the students as you're going through the method. All those sorts of things. Obviously, the answers are often the nicest. Some of us are stronger in other areas than other teachers. So it's nice just having the answers there as a backup in case you need them. And it saves you making them, which is obviously an awesome time saver. If we go on, here's another example. This one was actually inspired by my early years of teaching, which was way back in 2000. I remember I was doing a murder mystery with my students, and they had to identify different powders in the classroom depending on how they reacted, so physical and chemical change, and then work out who committed the crime and so on. So when I saw this elaboration, getting students to, suggesting that students might like to look into a mystery powder, I was like, yes. So this is a little mystery that students will need to solve based on, who destroyed the kitchen of the person cooking the cake for the party kind of stuff. But again, it relates to physical and chemical change. So it's another way of covering off on the content descriptor. And it also gives you the opportunity, if you'd like to tick off that elaboration, it's there for you. And again, downloadable, editable. Woohoo! This is an example from Year 9 with the infectious diseases. So the content descriptor is looking at organisms and different ways of minimising the transmission of disease, how to control disease, looking at the data, hygiene, quarantine, all that sort of stuff. So the elaboration here you can see is exploring the data and the rationale behind different strategies to prevent the spread of infectious disease. So we set this one up as a making thinking visible. Now, I imagine a lot of you have heard about Harvard's Project Zero and all the different thinking routines. And sometimes it's just easier to have somebody else prepare stuff for you. So what we've done is we've included making thinking visible boxes throughout the chapters, so that it gives you an opportunity to use the thinking routines. Students will be able to actually try and articulate what's going on in their head so they can sort out any misconceptions. You can see what's coming out of their head and sort out any misconceptions. And obviously all based on evidence-based teaching. So the thinking routines have been shown time and time again to be beneficial for students to be able to identify what they understand and what they don't understand and then correct it. So you'll notice those are around throughout the textbook, and obviously the online interactive version also. Here's another example. This is actually the same elaboration, but there's a little explore box. Now, this one's about them collecting their own data, doing some research online from a website that provides a whole lot of data on a whole lot of things. And then the students have to have a look at that data and summarize some of the key information. So lots of opportunities to revisit the same information in different ways, which is one of those things we love doing because not every student learns in the same way. So having content, having images, having some practice questions, having some explore, some try this, all those sorts of things allows them to access the information in so many different ways. Here's another one. So this is part of the electricity production, and one of the elaborations, it says, why don't you get your kids to build and investigate the power generated by a wind vane? So we did this this year, but I'm thinking next year I might turn it into an assessment, but a design your own experiment. So we might do this one to start off with. And then I'm going to say to them, okay, I want you to design an experiment that's going to have a look at perhaps, they could maybe investigate the size of the blade or the angle of the blade or the speed of the hairdryer or whatever. So I think it's a beautiful opportunity to do a self-design prac. So we're going to give that a whirl next year. Again, we're addressing the content descriptor by ticking off on the elaborations. So you don't have to do this. This is just a recommendation that you could try if you'd like to meet the needs of the curriculum. So here's something else. This is another practical activity. It relates to the new space exploration area, having a look at microgravity and fluids and so on. So there's a practical activity we've popped in, and there's content in there and some research activities as well. Here's another example. This is from the Science of Human Endeavour, and this one's looking at satellites and technologies, and so a beautiful one to pop into the textbook. You can see here it's not a box, it's part of the actual content of the text. Images, glossary, it's all there to help support the students. As we move forward, another example, this one again is also part of the text. It's not a special box or anything like that, but looking at how the computer modelling can improve our understanding and the information that we have about things like climate change. And so the Science of the Human Endeavour has quite a few dot points around things like technology and developments in technology and developments in engineering. So there's some really great opportunities there I certainly have got some kids that just love this stuff. So they'll go and do extra research on these sorts of things with just a little starter, which is cool. Another example of human endeavour, there's another making thinking visible box. A different thinking routine to try out with your students so that you can understand their misconceptions. Another one here, this is, again, we're linking to whatever we can that's Victorian. So this Australian pollinator count, when you go in there, there's opportunities to link in with Victoria and so on. So understanding how citizen science and community can sort of inform and help us understand how to make our future more sustainable. So lots of really cool stuff. And I think a lot of it is things that we want our students to come away with as well, which is really nice. We want them to have an understanding of their world. We want them to know how to be a citizen within our world and take care of our world. And so I think our new curriculum allows us to do that, which is fabulous. Alrighty, so implementation is always super scary. Change is hard, but as I've sort of been alluding to as we've gone through, there's a lot of stuff that we already do that we can use. Okay. Obviously, Cambridge is there to help you. We've covered the curriculum, we've covered the content descriptors, we've covered the elaborations. So everything you need is there for you. In terms of implementing, you will, obviously come up with lesson plans and unit plans and share that with your team, and you'll decide on which assessments you're doing, which practice you're doing, and so on. So to make that easier, Cambridge has got a whole lot of resources that you can use. So when we were having a think about what teachers need, it basically came back to the fact that as teachers, we never have enough time. It would be so cool to have a day just to sit and plan, and, then you can come up with some great activities and do some different stuff, but we don't always have that time. So time is a limitation. We have to cater for all our students. We need to make sure that the students that aren't into science are able to come and enjoy it. We need to make sure the kids that love science so much, they're reading science books at home. We want to make sure they're catered for. Students that are great at maths, not great at maths, we want to be able to cater for all the different students that come to our classroom. So that was something that Cambridge wanted to make easy for teachers. And reporting's the other one. Oh my goodness, I was stressed when I saw the fact that now I have to tick off on, science as a human endeavour. How am I going to do that? But again, Cambridge makes that easy. So I'll talk you through how we make that easy for you so that you know how implementation can work for you. So in terms of time, like I've said probably too many times, is that the resources that we provide are all downloadable, they're all editable. So the good thing is if you want to chop and change things, or maybe you want a worksheet that just supports those learners that are EAL or haven't come from a school that did science beforehand or any of that sort of thing, you can change the worksheets to suit those students. Maybe you want to make a worksheet for your students that need extending. You can amend the worksheet we've made to suit that. So it's super helpful that you've got all that. You've got the answers to all the worksheets. You've got answers to all the pracs. You've got answers to the activities. Everything is there for you that you can adapt in any way, shape or form that you want to. Oh, here we go. There's a little screen grab of what it looks like in the interactive version. Another thing is obviously teacher planners. So having a unit plan, an outline, a teaching program, whatever you like to call it, that suggests if you're covering this learning goal, you might want to do this prac, cover this information, do that activity. When you're covering this learning goal, you might like to cover this, do that, and so on. So the benefit of having a program already written is obviously you can use it as it is, keeping in mind your school will have probably different number of periods, different length periods, but at least you've got something to adapt. It's so much harder coming up with something from scratch. So it'll be really beneficial to have someone else's version that you can adapt and play with as you see fit. I love this. We have the most beautiful staff in our team, and this wonderful staff member is a real gun on Canva and spends hours turning every PowerPoint that she ever had into something more beautiful than anyone ever needs to see. And the students don't really mind if they get my NAF versions versus her beautiful fancy ones. But the thing is that she's realised it's actually affecting her time management. She's not assessing the students and giving them feedback in a timely manner because she's spending so much time making beautiful PowerPoints. So the cool thing is that Cambridge has done that for you. So nice, simple, clear, all the key information, key images in a PowerPoint ready to go. Now, obviously, they're amendable, editable, so you can change it how you see fit. If you want to pop in some, videos that you normally like to use on YouTube, if you want to merge yours with ours because there's some really great stuff that you've done in the past that you want to keep up with, go for it. It's all there for you to use. And I think that's a massive time saver. The other thing is, as I mentioned, learning goals. So I think we've all learned over years that having learning goals keeps us focused when we're planning, keeps us focused when we're in the classroom, and helps the students know what it is that they're going to be covering. And then that reflecting back and having a look at the success criteria. Was I able to do that? Can I do that? So every section in the textbook starts off with the learning goals, and every section of the textbook ends with the success criteria. And those success criteria also link to questions in the end of the section so that students can see how they might be assessed on that learning goal. So here's some images for you. So you can see here, there's the interactive version, and on the left, the textbook version, right at the start of every section, the learning goals. Okay, so what do you want the students to achieve? What do you want the students to learn by the end of that section? And then this is what it would look like at the end with the success criteria. So they're the learning goals, but rephrased to be success criteria. Students can tick them off. They can see where questions in the end of section questions relate to the different learning goals that they need to cover. Okay. I love that because I'm a checklist lady, and some of you may be comfortable with assessment for learning, but one of those things that I love is sharing with the students, okay, today we're going to look at blah, blah, blah. And then at the end of class, I can sort of quiz everybody on what they've learned related to those learning goals. And before a test, I can give them the checklist. How are you feeling with it? Are you feeling good, bad, need some questions to ask? You know, so making sure the students know how they're going with their learning and where they need to go to next is so important. Differentiation, new curriculum, how am I going to make it fit my kids that are all over the shop, different levels, all that sort of thing. We make it easy for you. So all our worksheets have little indicators that show, are these questions using the lower levels of Bloom's taxonomy, or are they using the higher levels of Bloom taxonomy? So you kind of know where they sit. The differentiation is, it's not massively obvious. Can you see that on the left of the screen that you're looking at, next to the word differentiation, there's the little steps, or it looks like a little bar graph. That's what it looks like. So next to each question, there's the 3 levels, the 3 steps, and that will indicate the level of difficulty or the level of Bloom's taxonomy that it's at. I'll show you an example. So here's 2 worksheets, one for year 7, one for year 10. And you'll notice next to each of the questions, there's the little steps icon. So 1 step would mean the lower level Bloom's terms, 2 steps would mean the middle of the range of Bloom's taxonomy, and the 3 steps or the 3 bars would mean that it's the higher level of Bloom's taxonomy. And you'll love the worksheets. We've really tried to beef up the data analysis side. So there's a lot of worksheets giving students opportunity to look at data, to draw graphs, to practice analysing and evaluating. And each section of the textbook's got a bit more about that later. I'm getting carried away again. Pre and post testing, again, it's evidence-based teaching to test your students before you start a topic so that you know where they're at. If all your students already know about the respiratory system inside and out, probably not worth going over it again. So pre and post testing, super important, and that's something that Cambridge does super well. We call it adaptive because what it means is, let's say a student answers, as you can see here, a level 2 question. I'll just call it level 2. Imagine it's like the 2nd step kind of thing. So the middle range of Bloom's taxonomy. One student gets it right, and it's noted that they've achieved a correct response, so it moves them to a harder question. A student that gets the answer incorrect, that gets noted and moves them to an easier question of lower level Bloom's taxonomy so that they have more opportunity to show their knowledge and show their understanding. It's way too cool to share everything about it now, but We'll talk about that in the next webinar anyway. But it gives you data, you get to see everything. We're using the Edgen platform, which means you get to see all this information. It's what we use for our maths textbooks. It's an award-winning platform, and it can provide reports, and there's a massive amount of information that will actually be super helpful. As I've mentioned before, we love multiple exposures because students learn in so many different ways. So students, for example, that are visual learners love seeing pictures and diagrams. So key processes will always have images and diagrams associated with them. Some students really love the, chalk talk side of things. So there's always lots of questions. Some students like doing stuff. So there's practical activities, try these activities, find out about these activities. Some students are writers. So they might like the making thinking visible activities and the explore activities. So almost every content descriptor is covered in multiple different ways, which means you've got more chance that students are going to be able to access the information and be successful, which is a dream come true for all teachers, to have their kids doing well. In terms of reporting, obviously it's like, oh, I've got a new curriculum. Oh my goodness, now I have to report on all these other things. It's okay. As I mentioned, the Edgen platform gives you reports. You've got your pre and post testing, your adaptive testing. You've got all those things there for you. And we also have the curriculum mapped for you. So, for example, my team and I had a mini freak out thinking there were like 10 different things that we weren't actually covering very well. And how were we possibly going to fit them in? They were all around the science of human endeavour. And so what we did is we had a look at the curriculum map, and it said for the particular content descriptor we were worried about, oh, it's covered on in chapter 3 in this unit. And we're like, oh, we did that. That's awesome. I hadn't kind of seen how that works out. So the curriculum mapping makes it so easy. When there's something you feel like you can't tick off on, you can look at where it is, adapt, use, whatever you like, but it's all there. Everything is there for you. So you just need to be able to find where it is. And that's why the curriculum mapping is so super handy, especially for people like me. So essentially, the main things that we want you to come away with today is understanding that there have been some changes. There's some new stuff, there's some removals. The new Victorian curriculum is different. But a lot of the things that are different are around clarity. So that's really nice. There's a lot of things that you already do that you can use. And if there's new stuff, we've got it covered. So every content descriptor, every elaboration, every science as human endeavour, every science understanding and inquiry, it's all there for you. So you have everything that you need. The other thing to keep in mind when you're doing your planning for the new curriculum is that we're making that easy for you too. You've got your PowerPoint sorted, you've got your worksheets, you've got your online activities, you've got all these different little things, try this, explore, practicals, blah, 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 blah. More to come, webinar 2, I'm sure we'll expand on all that because I'm talking too much. And differentiation, a massive, thing that we all worry about, and especially with the new curriculum. So that's covered off. That makes, Cambridge makes that nice and easy for us. The reporting side of things, also nice and easy for us. So really it's the ultimate go-to. You can use what you need, adapt what you don't, to make it what you need. You can cut and paste and edit and all these things, and everything is there ready to go. So besides being slightly biased, having a role in the book, but it's made my life heaps easier in the classroom. So I hope it will do the same for you. And we are going to open up for questions.
Wow, thanks so much for that, Tori. It was fantastic to go through not only what's happening in the curriculum, but also just, I guess, the amount of hard work that's gone into this series has been phenomenal. Not just Tori, but also Erin and Sarah, the rest of our lovely author team. They've done a fantastic effort throughout the past little while working on this. So we're very excited to be able to finally share it with you all. My name's Sarah as well. So I'm the lead science publisher for this series. So I'm going to go through a couple of questions, and Tori and I will do our best to get you the answers that you need. So I thought I'd just start with this one on the curriculum. So this is one for you, Tori, on reproduction from Justine. So Justine's asking if she's taught reproduction in year 8, does that mean you need to reteach it in year 9 in the next year with the same students, which is a good question and probably a common question for curriculum changes. So I might hand over to you for that one, Tori.
Yeah, sure. Look, it probably comes down to how your school manages reporting a little bit. For example, in year 8, my school did reproduction, and as part of that, they actually did asexual and sexual reproduction as part of looking at the systems. So that's actually meant for us with the new curriculum coming in and us giving it a bit of a trial run this year. We only need to report on science understandings and science inquiry and the science of human endeavour. So we don't, for us, it's okay to not cover reproduction again. However, if, for example, because the change in the curriculum does come with not just a change at the year level, but also a bit more detail in the content description, it actually says now asexual and sexual reproduction. So if you just did the reproductive systems in year 8, then you've still got the opportunity to cover some cool reproductive stuff in year 9 by looking at the asexual and sexual reproduction. It depends on your school. If you did that as well in year 8, then you probably won't want to repeat it in year 9, which might actually end up being a question for the VCAA in terms of how your school's going to assess it. Most schools that I'm aware of don't actually put the content descriptors into the reporting. We don't actually even put, biological understanding. We keep it quite broad so we can chop and change depending on the semester. So that might be something to keep in mind. The other thing to go along with the changing year levels, because it does, yes, it makes your mind so messy, is things like the year 9 electricity unit that you would have done is now in year 8. So for us, for example, this year, as I said, we're trying to practice doing the Victorian Curriculum 2.0. So we've actually started our year 9s with the electricity unit because they didn't get to do it in year 8. And later this year, our year 8s will do their version of the unit to make sure that our year 9s haven't missed out on that whole chunk of key knowledge and understanding. So you will find there's a bit of weirdness there. So just, keep in mind that there will be a little bit of either moving things and therefore refining how you teach it, or for us, not doing reproduction means we're actually going to spend 2 weeks doing some extra inquiry skills, but we're actually going to do it in the context of reproduction. So it'll refresh all their reproductive knowledge, but we'll do some data analysis, practice doing some reading graphs, drawing graphs, what do they mean, writing conclusions, identifying trends, that kind of thing. So it'll be a little bit up to your school on how you manage that one. Great question though, thank you.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Tori. And yeah, it is, I guess, a challenge in no matter how it changes, there's always things that we've got to kind of consider. And, us as publishers as well as part of our planning process of how we can put that together with Tori and the rest of the author team. So yeah, and I guess if you're just building on what Tori said and what Tori said in her presentation as well, with time being that key factor that, when we ask teachers what they need from us, the biggest thing they say is things to save them time. So I guess that's kind of what we've tried to bake into this resource in terms of the, our teaching programs and how we map the curriculum to kind of clearly show you where it can be covered and how you can sequence it. So we're really hoping that does help a little bit, even if some of that needs to be used this year for kind of that planning and carryover phase as well. And I would say too, if you do want to have access to any samples of that stuff, you can also let our sales team know, and they can show you things as you need them as well. So we did have another question about when the resources will be available. I'll leave that to the end. Emma, our sales manager, is going to take over from me after the Q&A to just go through some of those details with you. So I'll just park that one. So we also had a question about whether we provide risk assessments. Yeah, so I don't think we covered this in the presentation, but we have actually been in the process of developing these for the series. So we're really hoping that that's going to also save a little bit of time. But the risk assessments, if there is specific things or concerns you have around doing your risk assessments, please do reach out, because we really would love to hear from you to make sure we can tailor that as much as possible and provide that support where it's needed most. So yeah, definitely get in touch if you want a bit more information on them as they come through. They're being worked on as we speak though, so we're hoping that that'll be available pretty much at the same time as everything else when it comes out. All right, so what else did we have? Okay, so I know Tori, so Tori, you did mention that the online platform is similar to Cambridge Maths. So if anyone has used Cambridge Maths, it will be familiar. So that's definitely a big win of not learning a new platform. So someone's asking, does this mean that the functionality will look the same? So yeah, it's a good point. And I guess there's definitely some feature and differences between our maths and science and even our humanities series. But the great news is it is all on the same Hot Maths platform. So the Cambridge brand for science is Edgen, but Edgen is powered by the same platform as Cambridge Hot Maths. So it all looks the same. Importing your classes into the system is all the same. The reporting will all look very familiar. So all of that is still the same structure and functionality, and our sales team can definitely take you through a much more in-depth demo than we would ever have time for today to give you in the webinar. But yeah, so do get in touch with them if you do want to see a little bit more of the nitty-gritty of that. All right, I think we've got another platform one. So there's one just asking about the pre and post testing, just asking for a bit more detail. Yeah, so I suppose this is something we will have another webinar later in the year. So keep your eyes peeled for that, and we can probably go into much more depth on it in that. But I guess I can just touch on it quickly that these pre and post tests we've got. So Tori did cover how they are adaptive to student responses. That adaptivity between kind of the easy, medium, and hard level questions is completely invisible to the students. So that was one of the important things that we got feedback on when we were making this feature, is that we don't want students to kind of be demotivated if they know they're just getting hit with easy questions because they're struggling. So it was really important to kind of weave that into it at the same time as having something that gives meaningful reporting to the teachers. So that slide you would have seen towards the end of Tori's webinar that had the screen of the reporting with all the different colors. I think it's a yellow, red, and green in the reporting screen. So that basically gives you a snapshot overview of what every student is looking like after their pre or post test. We've also got another function of reporting with those adaptive tests that shows student growth over time as well. So you can actually chart, it'll automatically chart for you what their growth is from their pre-test to their post-test to show you how their learning is hopefully improved. If it's gone downhill, it'll show you a downhill slope as well. But we would like to hope that they're always going to go up with the post-test. So yeah, we really love that reporting. We really hope that you'll love it as well. And the sales team can take you through kind of what the student view of those tests looks like, as well as the teacher view for assigning the tests and seeing the reporting. And the key thing there as well on reporting is that those adaptive tests, the reporting view that you see is you can toggle between either our resource structure, so the chapters and the topics within them, or you can toggle it to the curriculum and see the key topics in the curriculum. So it's all kind of knitted together nicely so that you can see it in whatever way that you need to. So yeah, that's probably one of the things that I'm most excited about. There's been a lot of research and thought that's gone into it. So we're pretty proud of what we've got. But yeah, so I think I'll just see if we've got any more questions coming through. Okay, so we've got a question from Francis. Are teachers able to create their own differentiated tasks using questions from across year levels? Yeah, okay, that's a great question. I think that's something, Emma, it's a bit tricky to answer here because I think we're just looking at our subscriptions at the moment, but it does depend, I suppose, on how you adopt the series. So I think with those sorts of things in going between different year levels to assign tasks, I think that's definitely something to just chat to the sales team about if there's something in specific that you need, and we can see if there's a way that we can accommodate it. What else did we have? Oh, thank you, Melinda. I'm not sure. I don't think that was a question, just a comment that it's all looking impressive. Love the PowerPoints, editable, love the adaptive pre and post testing. Thank you. That's very exciting to hear. So yeah, and I guess that's one of the key things we've focused on is that having everything to be editable as well. Just again, as Tori's already said, and covered fabulously in her presentation that it's just so much easier for all of us if we can edit things as we go. We all know it's just makes life a little bit easier to be able to customize as you go and chop and change things as you need to. You know, we obviously always want to aim to provide the perfect resource for you, but everyone's situation is different. So we know that, you know, you're going to have to change things a little bit as you go, depending on your individual situation. So,
and every class is different as well. And you might have 2 year 9s and they're chalk and cheese, or, you know, 1 year after the next, they're totally different. And that's what I love actually about is all this flexibility that I can actually do what I need to do in the way that I want to do it. And it's so easy, which is fab. And that links in with your adaptive testing as well, Sarah. I mean, there's so much evidence from Hattie and so on about the, you know, pre and post testing and giving the students to have an opportunity to show what they know, and then you can build on that instead of just teaching a curriculum and the half of the class are like, oh, I already know this. And so it's so valuable being able to identify where the students are at now and where you want them to go, and then obviously work out how you're going to get there. But it's lovely too. You can identify those couple of kids that, for example, just need the extension, like they've already got it down, so you can enjoy throwing all manner of interesting stuff their way. Or you might identify the couple of students that have just missed the boat on changing schools and didn't cover that at that school, but they'd covered it there. And so you work it all out, and it's makes things so much easier than having to try and, you know, work it out over the first, you know, couple of months of school. So it's super handy. Sorry, cutting you off.
no, absolutely, Tori. It's a great point as well. All right, so I think just checking how we're going for time. I think we've got time to squeeze in maybe one more question. So I can see there was one here from Melinda about Year 8, about that curriculum change again, asking, is it feasible to include electricity in Year 8 and what's been taken out to allow it? So yeah, it understandably is a VCAA question, but is there anything that you can provide on that, Tori? I know Year 8 ended up being our biggest book, I think, out of the four because of all the content in it. So I can imagine it will be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's little bits of movement here and there. And as we all know, certainly with our curriculum, every school I've been in actually has been the same. You plan for 3 or 4 weeks on something, and then next thing you know, there's a camp, or there's a meeting, or there's an incursion, or they're out for a day. And the next thing you know, that's rolling into the, you know, week 5, and it's like, So really, you just do the best you can. You have a look at what you've got, have a look at what you need to cover, and just keep in mind some of these movements. So where there's some overlap, just remember you don't need to cover what has been covered the year before, for example, those sort of things. So just to be really mindful of going forward. Every time we do planning, we just sit and have a look at the curriculum before we do anything, just to make sure that we, you know, relink to what's going on. And that's where the planning documents are so super handy as well, because you can straight away see what's where, and where you can refine it, or whatever you need to do. So you might make little adjustments. We sort of the simple machines, we've always sort of done simple machines because it's so much fun. Now that it's explicitly a content descriptor rather than an elaboration, we're going to change our approach to that and build that out a little bit, but it does mean we're going to squish up some other stuff in Year 7. So we're going to just try and change around and try some different things and see what works. I think I had to keep coming back to, I've got to cover the content descriptors. The elaborations are also cool and exciting, and I want to do them all, but I don't actually have to do them all, and I won't have time to do them all. Cambridge has everything there, so you can pick and choose which of the elaborations suit you and your school, or whatever you want to do. But we've sort of had to rein things back in with some areas to make sure that we can fit in what we want to try with the simple machines, for example. So it'll be up to you and your team. They might want to play with looking at the case study on the mining industry, because they've got kids that really love, you know, sort of learning about big trucks and stuff. It's always, you know, there's always some cool pictures of big trucks in mining stuff. But yeah, so you'll work it out with your team.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much, Tori, for providing a bit of insight there. I might just hand over to Emma now to just give you a little bit more information about the series.
Thank you both. Thanks so much, Tori, for your wonderful presentation, and then Sarah and Tori for sharing some great information there as well. I've just got a couple of slides to share with you. Publication dates. So nice and early, actually. So we've already have advanced copies of a couple of the year levels. We have sample copies of each year level. So please do get your rep out. We can come out and show you through the series and the platform, because there's so many great features there to show you through. I'll share the rep details with you very shortly. The next slide. Just the pricing here for you. Print and digital is $74.95, and then digital only $59.95. If your school decides to booklist the series, then the online teaching suites will be provided to you complimentary, and every teacher would get access, every science teacher, I should say, in your department would get access to these resources as well, to the year levels that you booklist. The next slide. Oh, actually, just to point out that we do also publish for VCE Senior Science. And Tori is, as I mentioned at the start, an author on our biology series. So if you want information on these, do reach out to your rep. And I'm just about to share their details with you on the next slide. So I look after schools in the Bayside and Mornington Peninsula areas. So reach out to me if you want to see the 7 to 10 series. Lamone looks after the north and part of the east as well. So reach out to her. We've got Kim, who looks after schools in the east and the southeast. And of course, Marcus looks after the west. So we would really welcome the opportunity to come out, show you through the fantastic series and the amazing resources that support it. So if you haven't heard from us, please do reach out. Now, that does bring us to an end of the webinar. I did want to let you know that it has been recorded, and you should receive a link to the recording within a week, usually early next week, I would imagine, but if it's earlier, it's a bonus. I do want to thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Tori, again for your amazing contribution, and I hope everyone has a great night. Thanks very much.